understanding what you need, when you need it, and why you need it. Asking those 3 questions is going to help you define your customer journey. Your customer journey is going to help you define your process, and your process is going to help you define the tools that will help you implement it.
Welcome back to another episode of Quick to Buy. Today we have an exceptional guest, Irit Levi, the CEO and Chief Strategist at Day by Day. Irit helps coaches, creatives, and consultants scale their businesses with a focus on scalability, not just software. With over 15 years of automation expertise, she's tested nearly 1,000 tools and shared her wisdom with over countless articles, videos, and 2 podcasts that she herself co-hosts. So let's just say that her unique approach to technology and her passion for processes and automation are going to make her the perfect guest to have on for you today. So Irit, thank you so much for being my guest on Quick to Buy. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. And honestly, just listening to you talk about me, I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. Like, wow.
Like, I would listen to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Well, you can take this little intro and, keep it in your back pocket when you need a little pump up later if you're having a low moment for some of that motivation.
Absolutely.
Well, I know that you are just an expert on so many things, so I can't wait to see where this episode takes us today. But maybe just to give a little background for our audience on some of the basics, maybe we can start with talking about personalization in general. Could you maybe start with why you think personalization is so crucial in today's customer journey, especially for our audience of like e-commerce managers and like store owners?
Let's take, for example, a movie. I think the movie was Minority Report. And you walk into a store and there's this hologram that automatically recognizes you. It goes, "Hi, Becca, welcome to Gap," right? Or whatever it is. And you feel welcome because somebody knows who you are. I mean, in the movie, it's too much Big Brother is watching, but that's not the point, right? Like in general, we really like when someone calls us by our name. We really like when someone knows what our preferences are. We really like it when we're offered things that we didn't think of before that match our personality. And doing that to the customer journey is giving the customer a feeling that he's not one of many, but he is a specific person. You are unique and we care about you. And this is true across the board, whether in e-commerce or service or, big tech or enterprise. Your clients and your customers, they want to know that you see them and you hear them and you're there for them. And that's what personalization does for you.
Absolutely. I think that you put it so well. And also with that metaphor of like how you can picture like in the movies, you see this, but I think we're getting closer and closer to something like that every day. So you heard that predictive trend here first. Once you can get to that level of kind of personalization shopping, no matter where you are, you're going to feel like taken care of. Our last guest actually also said he really feels like some of the future in personalization and shopping like online will be these AI chat assistants that are just going to know everything about how you've shopped before. So they're just going to be like your little personal online shopper. And it sounds like from your advice, this is sort of, if brand could prepare for that, that would be a pretty smart thing to do to really play up that personalization angle.
Yes and no. Yes, in terms of customer journey, 100%. But also, I think we always have to be careful of that, George Orwell, 1984. I don't want them knowing too much about me. And wait, how did they find out that I bought those blue socks yesterday? It's like when you're talking to your spouse about buying socks, and all of a sudden you're getting ads for socks on Google, and you're like, how did that happen? Right? So it's a balance. You want to personalize it on the one hand. Absolutely. But you don't want, and I mean, big data today knows everything about us. Let's not lie. If you're online, if you have a digital footprint, 5 likes, they can sell you anything. But we don't want to give the client that scary, eerie feeling of, we know you, we're watching you, we're stalking you, right? So it's a balance. Yes, we're going towards there. I don't think we're far from there. I mean, we're not doing holograms and people walking into stores, but also a lot of our shopping has turned online. And online, I think we're really, really close to there.
Absolutely. I would 100% agree with you. I think like if we start preparing for it now, and if you're like looking for maybe the tools that can help you like kind of process the data so that you can have that maybe balanced approach you're talking about so it feels helpful and not too invasive. And speaking of tools, you have tested last count 978 tools. I'm not sure if that's still an accurate number.
Oh,
You can let me know, but maybe you have some tools from that list you can share with us.
So the thing about the tools that I test, or let's put it this way, the thing about doing personalization is that it's not about finding a tool that will help you with personalization. It's about having a system and having a system architecture that will help you with that. So whatever tool you're using, it doesn't really matter. You need to, I know this is going to be the opposite of what I just said, but you need to collect as much data about your customers as possible. Yes, you need to, because the more you know about them, the easier it will be to create algorithms that will help them. I think an example that I can give from an e-commerce app perspective is a tool called AMP, and they do in-app messaging. And instead of segmenting it based on, you have long hair and glasses, so you want X, and you have short hair and no glasses, so you want Y, they do clusters. They do clusters based on user experience, based on your behavior, based on other people as well. It's a lot more complex than just a simple segment that we do in our email marketing. It's multiple factors, multiple variables, and putting them together to give you specifically a personal experience that is based on you. So if we know that you open your messages on, in the evening or only on Tuesdays, then we're not going to send you too many messages outside of that. We'll try every so often, but mostly we're going to focus on when you open them. And you can have different wordings and different offers. And again, based on customer preferences, customer behavior, other customers' preference, like it's really, really complex. And the algorithm there is based on, it's just out of this world. Now, I don't use this because I don't have an app and I don't need this, but I've seen it in action. I've met with their team, and I'm not an affiliate. This is just a tool that I really think anybody that does in-app messaging should look into this.
All right. Well, we'll definitely have to link that in the show notes for anyone who's listening in and wants to try that tool. I think that's a great recommendation. But I also really want to circle back to what you said about making sure that you have your systems in place. When brands are really thinking about building those systems and building those processes, where is a really good place to start? If a brand is like, what, I have nothing, like I'm really starting to build things, what are some of those early things they have to get right?
So a book everybody quotes is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or whatever it's called. And his number 7, I think, is start with the end in mind, or maybe it's number 3. Anyway, it's not just said start with the end in mind. If you know where you're going, you can build a path to get there. So the secret is to define what your goal is. What is the customer journey you want them to experience? And then work backwards from there. What do I need to have in order to give them that kind of customer experience? So do I need their mailing address? If I'm just an online and I'm not sending them anything, I'm sending them virtual stuff on the computer. Do I actually need a mailing address? I don't, but maybe I want to send them gift cards. Maybe I want to send them a birthday gift. Okay, so I do need it. And then when do I ask for it? If I ask for it right at the start when I don't really need it, I'm going to cause friction, and I don't really need that friction at that point, so let's ask for it later. So again, understanding what you need, when you need it, and why you need it. Asking those 3 questions is going to help you define your customer journey. Your customer journey is going to help you define your process, and your process is going to help you define the tools that will help you implement it.
Absolutely, really well said. And I think like in e-commerce, a really good example of people maybe just jumping on the goal of, okay, we want to capture like email data really fast is sometimes you're like the minute you're on someone's web shop and you're there for like 2 seconds and then there's a pop-up and it's like, give me your email address. And that can work sometimes, but if it's that fast, is it going to do what you want it to do? And is it creating the impression you want in that? And that friction that you mentioned, I think that's an example of it right there.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I hate pop-ups, just for the record. If I'm interested in your brand, I've come to your e-commerce shop and I want to get notifications about, I do puzzles. I love puzzles. So we go to a puzzle shop. Yes, I want notifications of new puzzles. Why? Because we're always looking for new things. We know what we love, but it's hard to find. So there's a good chance I'm going to look for an email to put in, like a field to put in my email anyway, without you offering me on a pop up, which is not to say you shouldn't ask for it. You could do it on exit intent when someone sort of wants to exit, then you give them the pop up. And again, have a cookie in place so that you don't give it 5 times every time I scroll up. A pop up asking for my email before I've even browsed, that's very similar to people in the beginning of the YouTube show. Like you have a clip on YouTube and it's like 3 minutes, and the first 20 seconds are like and subscribe. I haven't even watched your clip. Why would I like and subscribe? Right? So let me go to your store. Let me peruse what you have to offer. Watch my behavior. We're tracking behavior. We're tracking clicks. We're tracking mouse movements. Like there's so much that we can track today. Watch my behavior, figure out what I like, and please, please do not offer me a 10% discount before I've even visited your store for 2 seconds, because what you're telling me is that your prices are 10% too high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really good point that other experts I've had on them said as well. Like when you're overdoing it with showing a discount like that too soon, you're already kind of creating this impression and taking away a potential revenue opportunity. You know, maybe there's somebody who is like you, super interested in buying this puzzle, and you already would have had it in their cart without being stopped on the way. Oh, if I fill out this long form, then maybe I can check my email and get this discount. By the time I did that, I'm second guessing the puzzle I really wanted.
And life gets in the way, right? Because if I have to sign up to
Yes,
your
that's
email
true.
to get a 5% discount, by the time the email comes in, my kids are calling me, the phone has rung, like I have a
Mm-hmm.
million other things, like the washing machine is done, so I need to go move it to the dryer. Like things happen in life. You've lost me. You wanted to give me a discount, you've lost me. And I would
Yeah.
have bought it, like you said, I would have bought it for full price.
Well, I love that. And I think this is already a really nice gem people can take from the episode. I'm also curious if you have any advice on how maybe e-commerce stores can try to use automation to really ensure this really smooth and personalized customer journey without sacrificing the personal touch that, as we've mentioned, or as you mentioned, can really bring in that extra level.
So personalization and automation go hand in hand. And if you have an e-commerce store, a certain level of automation is 100% necessary. So I'll give 2 examples. The first example is if somebody buys something from you, you want to send them an email when they buy. I had the most phenomenal experience buying flowers. We had a huge event in my family, and my extended family and friends really helped me. And 2 people specifically stood out. We wanted to send them flowers. And I looked for an online store, and I saw a store that was really, really useful. The prices were okay. They were mid-range. They weren't the lowest. They weren't the highest. The offering that they had was great. Like the selection was really good. I found what I wanted. The form to fill it in was phenomenal because it was reactive. So every time I clicked on something, it reacted and updated the form. It was like conditional logic within the form. And the fields were updating with pricing as well in real time. So I didn't have to wait until I clicked 3 steps into the checkout to see what my shipping was going to be, right? It was updating automatically, which I loved. The minute I put in the order, I got a text message, I got an email saying your order has been placed, and then I got a separate email with the invoice. And then they sent me an email when it was out for delivery, and then and a text message, and they sent me an email and a text message when it was delivered. Now this may seem a lot, and I'm sure you can update your preferences on that site, but honestly for me, because they didn't know me yet, I was a new customer, so they didn't know if I prefer text messages or emails. They covered their bases. I felt, and because I had done 2 orders, I saw that the process was consistent. It happened across the board, no matter where I ordered to different areas in the country. It was so great to experience that because I felt like they really thought about the customer journey. And there's buyer's remorse. But then the minute that I bought it, they were like, oh, but you've done a great job and we hope you'll be happy. And, here's the receipt and this is what time you're going to be delivered and this is what you ordered. And I got everything that I needed. And they weren't too pushy saying, oh, next time here's a 10% discount. I don't need the discount right now. Right? You automated, but you gave me what I needed when I needed it. So that's one example of automations that just work because you're thinking, where are my customers? What do they need to know? What are their concerns? I'm concerned. Did my order go through properly? I got a text message saying it did. Yes, win. I'm concerned. Wait, the invoice. Did my credit card get charged correctly? Did they, whatever? I got an invoice with exactly the amount that I paid. Yes, win, right? And then what is it going to be delivered on time? They're telling me, no, oh, we just left the warehouse. Yes, another win, right? And then they told me it was delivered. So I knew to expect. I mean, I don't expect it, but I knew I can now call my friend or my sister-in-law and say, so did you get the flowers? Or if they call, I know that they're calling because they got the flowers, right? So it really gave me a great user experience without leaving the house. And I don't like online shopping. For me, that was the ideal experience. That's example number one. If we have time, I have a second example, which is actually very different.
Please go for
Okay.
it. Yes,
So
go for it.
I had a client who has an e-commerce store that does stickers and labels. And the automations that we put in place were actually offline. She had all the automations of emails and how to update and whatever that she had. But what I helped her with was offline processes and automations. So when the order comes in, how do we automate the production process in the back end? Now, unless you're Amazon, where everything is robotic and you don't need, human interaction at all, and even they do. But like, unless you're really big, you have human interaction. You want to make sure that the production process, the packaging and labeling and shipping, you want all those things that humans are doing to be as frictionless as possible. So the more you automate the systems and the processes that everybody that needs to know something has the information in a really easy manner in a database or in a spreadsheet or wherever it is that you're working, make sure that they get it as they need it and that it's easy for them to update it with just a click of a button. Because if I have to click more than 2 buttons, honestly, it's not going to get updated. We all know that, right? If you can connect your machines to it, even better, right? If you have a machine that's just printing out or whatever, even better. But make sure you have a system in place. Some steps you're going to have to do, they're going to have to be done by a person and they can't be done by a machine. But anything that you can delegate to an automation or to a tool, absolutely go for it.
And 100%. Thank you so much for sharing those two different examples. I think it also kind of shows like how there's so many aspects of your operations, whether that like your customer journey or as you said, some of those mixtures of automations versus things you have to do in person, but you can still leverage some of that automation to speed parts of that along. Is definitely something business owner can learn from and think of. And especially that first example of that super seamless experience. I think we know in today's day and age that online shoppers care about like if I'm buying something online, when is it coming? What's the shipping like? When can I expect it? What if there's a delay? How do I reach customer support? So keeping that flow of information always coming in at what felt like the right interval so that someone feels like really, I don't know, just kind of like they're holding your hand, but not in like a demeaning way, but in like a this is what I paid for and this is what I'm getting. Like it's gonna make such a positive experience. People are gonna come back again and again. And once someone comes back a couple times, like that like frequency of shopping, they're like so much more likely to keep shopping with you again. So I think you really hit the nail on the head with those examples.
Thank you. I think one more thing that I didn't mention, I should have probably mentioned this really early on. In the process of personalization, one of the most important points is right after the sale. I know we think about how do we not get the abandoned cart and how do we talk about how to get them back after they abandon the cart. I'm going to leave that to the experts. But one of the things that is so easy to automate is just that landing page with a thank you and a testimonial of someone who's purchased it and is happy. So dealing with that buyer's remorse after they pay, that is super duper important because especially like I've had such bad experiences with online shopping. So when I see someone that says, oh, their service was really great, for me, that's a win. That's okay. I'm going to try buying from them. And even if the product wasn't great or I had a glitch, if it says we had a glitch, but they dealt with it amazingly and they really helped us and they sorted out with it, very little time. For me, that's also a win because glitches will happen. It's how you deal with them. And so that landing page, that thank you page after they pay and the thank you email, definitely don't just include here's what you bought and maybe you'll also be interested in XYZ. It's also here's what you bought and now show some client love and share that social proof because That is a very critical point in the journey.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely a strong tactic that people could try if they're not doing that already. That, of course, we think of social proof before you've convinced someone to purchase, but even right afterwards to make sure they feel affirmed that they made the right decision with their credit card or cash is
Exactly.
a powerful tip, I think. Well, awesome. I definitely have a couple other things I'd love to pick your brain on. So, still on kind of the same theme, do you have any kind of pitfalls or common challenges that you've seen when implementing personalization and automation with companies you work with, or any stories of how people kind of overcome some of these challenges?
So I want to mention a common mistake many businesses make. They don't
Perfect.
separate the name field. I'm sorry, this seems like very, very basic. But you'll collect the name, right? And it won't say first name, last name, it just says full
Mhm.
name. Now, with automation, we can split the first name, last name, middle name, whatever, but you don't know if I put a middle name in or do I not put a middle name in, maybe I put a middle initial in. And the reason you want to split the first name from the rest is because when you send out those emails, and this is basic personalization, but you should do it anyway, you want to use someone's name. Now, if you're a formal company, you want to say, Dear Mrs. Levy. But if you're an informal, you want to say, Hi, Irit, right? So you want that first and last name separated. And it's just easier to ask the clients. Now, I know this seems like another friction point of this is a field that I don't know. Do I want customers? Like, do I want to add another field for them? People love talking about themselves. My name, of course, I want to give you my name because my name is complex. I have two first names and a middle name and a last name, and people kind of know if you put in the first name, they're going to put however they want to be called, right? Whereas when you just put a full name, it causes emails like, Hello, Irit Levi. I'm like, that's not personal. That's obvious.
No, it sounds,
It's a bot,
yeah, it
right? It's
sounds
just
like a
obvious
machine.
it's a bot. Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
machine. So I think it's like a very basic tip, but so many companies fall and like falter just by asking for the full name.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good point of where sometimes best practices, because of course it always depends on what your goal is. A lot of best practices say like the less form fields, the better. So I think that is like, as you said, a lot of people just rely on, okay, we can like parse it into chunks later to extract the information. But if you really want to make sure that you're having that opportunity to have that first name or last name separate for your different possibilities, like indeed, if you're more informal, maybe it's like, hi, Becca, but then you get something wrong with my order and I'm with customer support, it's more like Ms. Anderson or
Exactly.
something, depending on the tone
Exactly.
of what's being discussed. So I think that's, although it might sound simple, it's important.
I think because it's so simple, it's so overlooked. And I know that's like so basic, and I could talk about more complex automations and personalization options, but I think when you've got the basics right, and I think that that's the key. And it comes back to your first question, where do I start? When you know where you want to go,
Mhm.
okay, these are the touch points. That the first e-commerce project that I worked on was with a fashion store, a fashion e-commerce store.
Mhm.
And I researched customer journey for hours because it was new to me and I didn't know enough about it. But this is years ago. And on Shopify, I found the most phenomenal table. And it had all the different touch points in a customer journey. And then that was
Mhm.
across. And then going down, it had the different interaction types that you have. And so for every touch point, they put a dot for the different interaction types that you could have at that stage. And I think that that's a great place to start when you're planning your customer journey. What are the different touch points? And then
Mhm.
in those touch points, like if it's customer service, we have email. Do we have WhatsApp? Do we have text messaging? Do we have live chat? Like, do we have support on the site? Do we have a community? Do we have a blog? Like, what are the different touch points for customer support that we present to our customers? And then for each one of those points, what is the process? And each one of those points is going to have a different process. How do we upload blog posts? How do we moderate our community? How do we man the live chat? Is it a live chat? Is it an AI chat? Like, there's so many questions that you want to ask.
Mhm.
So having a table like that of the customer journey and the different touch points and how you interact in those touch points, that will help you define what information I need for each one of these touch points. and what information I want to get across to the customer.
Absolutely. I think that's a great tip and also something that is really tangible for people who are scaling their business. You can definitely look for that. I know a lot of our listeners are using Shopify, so that's a great place to start if you're thinking, what data do I need and how do I make sure I've figured out kind of that whole journey? So thanks for that. And I also really want to hear, as we're kind of getting a little bit closer to the end of this episode, do you have any trends or predictions that you have on the future of process and automation and personalization, especially since you've kind of worked with so many different tools? Maybe you've seen some things that maybe we can predict as a future opportunity.
So I think AI is taking over the world, and not in a good way. I think people are overusing it, if we can say that, and I think it's going to harm businesses before it actually helps. I know that that's not what everybody else says, so that's like, but that's my gut instinct. Everybody wants to use AI so much that they don't really know how to best use it and how to do best practices. And I think that may harm brands if they're not doing it properly and not doing the research enough. There are some amazing tools out there that can actually handle, like, there's a great tool that it has a conversation, an AI-based conversation. You don't feed it the questions, you feed it the information, you tell it what information you want to collect and your offer and your rate sheet or whatever it is that you have, and then it just has a conversation. If you build it right and test it forever, then it could really be useful. But if you're doing it wrong, it could have potential damage. And so that's my feeling, that the negative impact of AI, at first at least, but before it gets better, it will get worse.
Okay. I think that's also really good words to think about for businesses that are constantly being maybe inundated with AI solutions for things. Really consider, make sure that you've tested it and seen how it works, because maybe it is that tool that's been tested and can really do what you want perfectly. But you really don't want to, of course, harm that brand image and impression that your customers have who's using your product or that whole customer journey. So definitely good to keep that in mind. And of course, this is the Click to Buy podcast, so I can't let you go without a segment I call our click-worthy tip. And so this is one piece of advice that you have based on your experience, can be just a short little phrase or tip on how e-commerce managers and store owners can improve their customer journey and try to move those customers down the funnel.
In 2 words, build relationships. So your customers are not leads, they're not clients, they're not numbers, they're people. Remember that they're people. Treat them with respect, and your numbers will go up. Don't treat them with respect, your numbers will show it.
I love that. That was beautifully said. And of course, actually, I would love to have a shout out for the reason that Irit is on this podcast this today is because one of our other guests, Yuval Ackerman, suggested that she would make a fabulous guest. And I think if you're listening in, you would agree with me that she had been. And Yuval actually said as well that building relationships is super important. And her advice is to be curious. So I really think that if we take these 2 pieces of advice together, be curious about your customers and build relationships, you're already like well on your way to making a very strong strategy for creating that positive customer experience.
100%. And I love you, Val.
Yes, a little shout out since she was nice enough to send Irit my way. And finally, before we wrap things up, of course, I know where to find you online, but in case our listeners would love to learn more about you and hear more of your tips, where's the best place that they can find you online?
So I'm on LinkedIn every day, 6 days a week. You can find me there, and my website, which is day-by-day.biz.
Awesome. Well, be sure to have that in our little wrap up blog. And for everyone listening in, that's a wrap for today's episode of Quick to Buy. A big thank you again to Irit for sharing their valuable insights on the power of personalization and automation. Once again, I'm your host, Becca Anderson, coming to you from Instant Page Builder. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, share it with fellow e-commerce enthusiasts. That way we can keep making these episodes and know what you want us to talk about. And until next time, keep turning those clicks into buys.